It's hard. Like back in the good old days of Mega Man, when games were hard.
What school is doing.
As you beat enemies in turn-based RPGs, you gain experience, and with enough grinding, winning is less dependent on your own decision-making and more a factor of how over-leveled you are.
And a little bit of translation, how over-leveled you are, meaning you grind and you grind and you get all of the goodies and you get all of the swords and you get all of the tools and you level up, and so now
you can make special hive mind emojis that other people can't because you've ground and leveled up.
As a human being is your own attention. Your attention is everything. Your attention is what everybody's fighting over. Consider social media. What people really care about is what you're watching, what your eyes are looking at. That is what people are fighting over. Advertisements, what they want is attention. They want your attention on their ads so they can sell you something. People want you to watch their videos so that they can make money or fulfill this desire to have people paying attention to them, to spread a message, provide a place for self-improvement. Everybody's looking for attention because it's valuable. It's limited. There's only so much you can give, and we kind of spread it out freely. Consider what you put your attention towards. Attention is the most important thing you have. That's why people are looking for it. It's easy to go towards really strong attractors of attention, to try to kick into these base attributes of the way you see the world.
This is where I differ probably from everyone in the corner, except for maybe you and a few other people. But I think games are, I'm going to say it, I think they're the highest form of art. Or I think they have the potential to be...
I think that's much closer.
Yeah, okay. The greatest form of art. And the reason I say that is because when sculpture or painting began on caves, cave walls or whatever, it wasn't super refined. It wasn't the Renaissance yet, and that's where we are with games right now. We are 50 years into games as an art form. So they're still really in their infancy as an art form. Not to say we haven't had amazing games like Minecraft or StarCraft, or all the crafts tend to be really good. I don't know why, but they tend to, it's in its infancy. And here's the reason why I think they are going to be the highest art form, or they are, but they're still just an art form. They're still just an abstraction. They're not the end all and be all. That's the danger. Anyway, the reason is because all other art forms can be included in a game. And the reason for that is because games, to the extent that they're good games, this is me, Neil, what I think. To the extent they're good games, they are emulating something real about our existence. They're emulating something to the best of their ability to emulate that resonates with our own being. They wouldn't captivate us such if that wasn't the case.
Hey everyone, just wanted to lead this video in. In this video I talked to Neil, and we have a great conversation about a whole bunch of different topics, and we kind of constantly jumping around for a good hour and a half. Just wanted to warn you, there's going to be a lot of topics that might be a little confusing to people who just watch my channel and not any of the channels Neil is on. So I'm going to link a bunch of kind of resources below of different YouTube channels that we kind of briefly mention, other videos he's in, and a few other people that we talk about. If you want, feel free to look around at those resources, treat it as a game, and just try to learn. But I'm not going to try to go out of my way to give a background. I think it might be fun just to let it be. So we deal with all sorts of stuff from art to video games to some philosophy too. And this is hopefully the first of many conversations that Neil and I have, and I hope you all enjoy it.
So I am here with Mr. Noah Foxman, President Foxman. I think that I probably had the longest delay of anyone I've talked to yet within the corner between when I started talking to Noah and when, well, you Noah, and when this actually occurred. So that's been good and bad, because the bad side is like, oh man, I have so much in common with this guy. I really, really want to talk to him. And I've just been waiting. And but the good side is that I've got a ton of topics that we can talk about. And just in getting to know you a little bit better through your conversation with Christian Baxter and then your conversation with Chad, those topics just keep coming up. And so things like, I'll just throw out some really broad things that we could talk about. And group dynamics, group interactions, interdenominational relationships, evaluating quality in art, game development. So this is my topic: game development as self-exploration, music and beauty. That's probably going to be more in Chad's realm. Video games and first-person versus third-person view. And that's just scraping the surface of what I got. So yeah, we could start wherever you want and go from there.
Well, how about we start with video game development? Because I'm kind of on the outside. I'm doing a lot more playing of video games. I know you're working on video games, and so where were you thinking with that for a little bit on that side?
Yeah, so I sort of stumbled into it. I've talked about this before, but I'll give you the cliff notes. When I was in I would say the darkest time of my life, or the most difficult time of my life, I would say. But often, the best things come from those times if you stick with it, and that's been at least my experience. And if you stay optimistic. But during that darkest time, one of the things that was key to getting me through it was creative exploration in some way, shape, or form. Because, for example, Jordan Peterson talks about, if you're a creative person, you have to express it or you'll die. I think that's the way he actually said that. Like, you have to express it. And in my darkness, I was going through a religious transformation at the time, and a religious conversion. But I was still confused about that.
Even had all the nudity that you'd expect from a Vervaeke interview, and it just got overtly raw, Paul. It just got so raw, and I appreciated that. And so I want to get your take on how that went down. And I think there was a curious little moment in there where John alluded to the fact that he had never read Mere Christianity, which struck me a little bit off.
Yeah. Well, John and I have been speaking for, I think, can go back 4 or 5 years, conversations that we've had. We met each other after some people had pointed out his videos, Buddhism and Cognitive Science, that he was teaching at University of Toronto. And so I did a few comments on them. The sound was pretty bad in that. And at that point, he had some students that wanted to sort of up the production values, and they did. So John and I have become friends over the years. And we just sort of, whenever one of us gets an idea that we'd like to talk with the other one, send an email, set up a time. And so we did. And I've been watching the sermon, but
I love that. So it seems like he's been doing that in the chapters prior to this. I think this was maybe out of Mark 8, something like that. I mean, you see Mark 4 and 5 where he goes to the Gadarenes, across the sea. He's dealing with a guy that's possessed, who's living among the tombs. He comes back diseased. He's impure. The Syrophoenician woman touches him, makes him unclean. But then he's walking through the crowd, he's touching everyone else, but he's not unclean.
No.
He's flipped the story, just like you said.
That's right. And so on one hand, people sometimes want to say, well, Jesus is a wonderful example. And he is. He is our example. He is the icon, the image of the invisible God. He is that. But he is also not, you can't just pigeonhole him as a successful man like Alexander. Because what would that look like? And so in talking to some of my friends sometimes who they'll say, well, I would have believed Jesus if the ascension is really a problem. Because if we had Jesus, if we had we have the resurrected Jesus now 2,000 years old, sitting on top of Mount Hermon with Elijah and Moses coming to visit regularly, that then I would believe. And the answer to that is, then you would believe what? Because what exactly are you hoping for?
And oftentimes I'm bumping into those things and knocking them over or ignoring them, but they're really good. They're good to know, Yeah.
Definitely. I'll say, so my first foray into Paul's corner of the corner was actually Mark Lefebvre. He must not be named, I guess. But he showed up in my feed, and I didn't even know he was connected to the corner at all, and I just started watching stuff, and he was saying a lot of things that challenged my ideas. And it was a live stream, so I can comment and get real-time feedback on some of this stuff. And yeah, he wasn't having it on some of the things I was saying. So he was really good for breaking up some of those calcified ideas. Yeah, eventually there were some things that I drifted away from the channel a bit, but I think it's good getting into the larger community of channels, the flotilla, and learning different people's stories. I had a good bit of trepidation coming in because I don't have, just the regular run-of-the-mill Christian ideas. I'm still searching. I'm still working things out, and my way back in is by way of actually through Plato, and it's my way of approaching these ultimate ideas, and it renewed my belief in God. So that was very important. So, if you talk about Plato in a lot of churches, they're going to go, well, that's a non-starter. So it was very, very interesting seeing John's discussions with Bishop Maximus and stuff, where they get into some of these ideas and where they tie in, and then finding Luke's channel and some of the stuff that he says, and seeing Sam. It's okay, this is a safe place to talk about the big questions. It's the Sunday school of our dreams, as I forget who said that. But that really stuck with me. It's the Sunday school of our dreams.
Was that Tile? Maybe.
No, it wasn't Teo. I want to say it was Neil.
Oh, probably. That sounds like a Neelism.
Yeah.
So I have a question around this. I've been thinking a lot of. Well, I've always been intrigued about this metamodernism since Paul's brought it up, and yeah, this is something. I've reached out to this Brendan dude. This morning I listened to Christian Baxter's conversation with Brendan.
Graham Dempsey.
Yes, that dude.
Yeah.
I don't know if you got to listen to that or not, but that was superb. It was great. I thought it was great. Christian Baxter's kind of blowing my mind as of lately. I mean,
yeah,
the conversations, and I look at his skills around being the host of the show, and I'm just I'm drooling. How do I get to be a better host like Christian Baxter? But he's great. But I was listening to the this conversation on metamodern Christianity, and man, do I want to have a talk with that dude, because I would love to talk with him about this, because I think he's basically on the edge of something. It seems to me like he might be on the edge of something that will be very relevant to a lot of people, and it needs to be handled with care.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with the idea. The big thing I want to say about it is, I don't think metamodernism, as little as I know about it, but I don't think in any form that it is, that it should be a worldview or a way of life. But in fact, it should be a workbench or a workshop. And that's how I'm understanding that. So I kind of disagree or dislike the particular name Metamodern Christianity, because you're not going to be able to get get all the parties to work together on that. So in some sense, I just, there's something about it that's off. But because when I hear Christianity, I hear way of life, right? And so I think that's why I don't jive with the metamodern Christianity language. But as a workbox or a toolbox or a workbench, I'm all for it.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, secret oaths, and secret proceedings. Hello. I see the assassins have failed, and if you're over there on the Twitter, you can find my tweet and give it a heart, and maybe he'll make the robot slave boy do it. Do it. Also, I've been writing things on the Substack. You should probably know it's called the LARP Ingression Protocol. That's where you can find this beautiful God Mask and our latest drop, Souls and Songs and Civilizations. And now back to our coverage of the Sacred and the Shamanic, the Peterson-Weinstein commentary. Thank you for watching this commercial. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am General Griswold Gaius Grim. We are going through the Sacred and Shamanic, appearance of Brett Weinstein on the Jordan Peterson podcast, and we've gone through the Chinese invasion, the father of nations, the distilled corruption, and only one fancy card remains. That's Radiant Mutants, and I'm almost positive it's one of these 3 timestamps we have left. So let us journey together to 1:14:44, like a biologist.
I agree with you completely. Okay, so imagine this.
Tell me what you think about it. It's like an optometrist almost. That wasn't mutants. What about 1:19:55?
Which we take in, is trapped in their somatic experience of the moment.
Absolutely.
Right?
We all know that there is no agency any living gent can see. Doing what is right for me is lifting up my bro so he can grow some eyes to see that doing what is right for me increases all our agency.
Raquel did have a dime. Thank you, Raquel. Thank you very much. It makes it worth doing, you know. Well, we've made our way. We have yet to find Radiant Mutants, but that was a fantastic timestamp. Oh, we've explored Ultimate Reality. Let's see if this 1:23:44 brings us to Radiant Mutants.
This was only discovered in November of 2022.
And spoiler alert, the reason they call it the sacred and the shamanic is because the experimental side is the shamanic and the sacred is the stuff that we don't experiment with. And that's why they called it that. That's Radiant Mutants is what it was really. It was really Radiant Mutants, but that's been my commentary on the Peterson-Weinstein conversation, I'm sure. I'm sure that makes you want to slog through the whole damn thing yourself. But if not,
There is no agency. We want what's best.
And that's me playing this video game, trying to catch the Dune algorithmic sandworm that used to ripple from Papa Peterson's releases, and playing that instead of Civ 5.
This is the other strangeness, where it's obvious that if you come down with cancer, what salvation looks like is no longer having cancer. But what did salvation look like before you had cancer? And what you find with human beings is they're always sort of just trying this chase, in Harry Potter terms, this snitch, and and it's this unobtainable thing. And I think part of what I, when I read Jesus in the Gospels, part of what I see in him coming is that the promise that we get from him, which is borne out then in the book of Revelation, is what we are in need of is a new heavens and a new earth. And this is what we must inherit, because the flesh and blood that we have here can't quite, we need creation 2.0, we need new flesh and new blood. And of course that then for people, well, that sends us off into all kinds of other avenues, but that I think is the gospel. And when people say, well, what about details? I said, well, what kind of details would actually help you in that? Because the alarming thing is that, so in a recent video, I sort of contrasted Miley Cyrus winning the Grammys with this story of a woman in a nursing home who is this woman in this nursing home whose face is half eaten by cancer. And it's a crappy nursing home, so the whole place smells of urine. And you look at her and you think, gosh, that life must be a living hell. And then you talk to her and you discover that actually she's far happier than people who are in the biggest, beautiful, best homes in the nicest neighborhood in your city. And she's happy because of Jesus. And you might look at, say, well, I would like to be Miley Cyrus, receiving accolades and awards and all of that. But then we also know, what was it? Was it Jim Carrey? 2-time Golden Globe winner. What would you like to be, Jim Carrey? 3-time Golden Globe winner. There's sort of a like the carrot in front of the horse thing going on in this world. So our life is not exactly as obvious as we think it is. And the Christian story, I think, engages with all of this at a very deep way and leads us to say things like, okay, if my life takes a really bad turn, and if I wind up in that nursing home, and if my friends forsake me, Jesus will still be with me, and I can cling on to him. He is really all I need. And when you're preaching to, part of what's fun about the rough drafts and then the Sunday version, the sound capture is never very good on the Sunday version, so I don't often post it on my channel. Rick and I are working on that. We'll probably get it right at some point. But it's one thing listening to a video of some, balding middle-aged man on YouTube. Being part of a church and a congregation, it's so much more messy, but potentially what you can't love me very well through the video. You can put on a super chat, or you can donate to Patreon, or you can send money to Livingstone Church, all of that. But what you actually get if you're a member of a church is that you get the opportunity to love difficult to love people. And most people would say, well, why would I want to do that? It is more blessed to give than to receive. And if you begin to learn that, well, now you're on to something. And if you go to a church, that's what you'll find. People who are hard to love.
I used to be the guy when people would come forward to join church, I would take them in the back room to make sure, hey, you've really got this. And one of the common things I would tell everyone, where did you leave? well, this church, they just didn't understand me. There were bad people there, whatever it might be. I said, well, the only one thing I can promise you is that you're coming over here, that all you're gonna do is find a church full of hypocrites just like you. And so if you're comfortable with that, like, we might be the place for you. But if not, you need to find somewhere else, because that's all that we can offer.
That's right.
That's it. That's it. Right. And the beautiful thing, I think also, you said it's more blessed to give than to receive. I think there was maybe a like one notch higher that Jesus offers at some point in there, where he says that it's better to give to someone who can never repay you.
Yes.
And so if you can find someone that has no chance of ever repaying you, that seems to have maybe an up ratchet of the benefit to you. And it seems like you're doing that both online and then also offline with some of the people in your congregation.
Well, I don't know. I have to give credit to my father, who was also a minister, and I watched him spend 36 years pastoring a little church that would never make it to Christianity today, would never grow very large, and it was in a little struggling area of Paterson, New Jersey, which is. I went back to New York City in 2006. I grew up just outside of New York City, and went to college in 1981, and I came back in 2006. It's like, New York City is different than it was in the 1970s. In the 70s, it was the Warriors and Abe Beam and going bankrupt and the blackout. New York City was a mess in the 70s. You come into 80s and it's all full of these beautiful, wealthy people walking on the street. And, what happened to the gritty, grimy New York? And then I went back to Paterson, where I grew up, in 2013 after my father died, and thought, same thing didn't happen to Paterson. It was probably worse than when I lived there. And so I've watched my father minister to the people of Paterson, New Jersey, most of whom were either African Americans who came up from the South during the Second World War for the jobs, or the children of that generation. And I just saw my father pour himself out for people who struggled. And my father never, if he had these thoughts, she probably did at time to time. I never saw him say, oh, I wish I had a bigger church. I wish I had more spotlight. I wish I had more acclaim from the world. He enjoyed loving the people there, and they enjoyed being loved by him and loving him back with the ways that they could. They didn't have any money. They didn't have anything that the world would look at, but they loved him back. And growing up in that, you could see the beauty of this, and just say, it gives you a sense of the gospel that, okay, the God has poured his riches, as the book of Corinthians says, in earthen jars. And they're even cracked, but in those cracks, sometimes you see the glory shining through out of those cracks. And so, to whatever degree, I have any attention on YouTube, maybe people look at it and say, oh, you've got all of these subscribers. It's a little channel, and I think it's just fine that way if the corner stays little. Anybody's welcome. You got a whole bunch of people who are just the same kind of people you're going to find in church, but that's okay.
Yes. Yep. You had an interesting comment earlier on today. I think it was the Jazz Cow interview
yes,
about jazz, and so there's and you just mentioned the kind of the African American culture that it seems was pervasive where you grew up, and I think there's a lot of truth in that the African American church culture specifically, they're the ones that brought jazz to the forefront, right? You've got this blues move with this simplified 1-4-5-1 chord progression. You've got the idea where you're mournful as you progress toward the grave, but after the body is lowered, it's a jubilee. It's a great glorious thing. And this is an example of broken people whose very lives and their backgrounds are coming out of slavery and injustice. They create this new form of music that is their prayer in a way for justice. They want to see justice in the end. They may not see it in their own lifetime, they want to see justice at their end. And I think it was Louis Armstrong, the great jazz trumpeter, who said was not an educated man, but he said that you is what you blow. You is what you blow. Like the music that you sing is what's really inside of you. That's how I know what kind of man you are. And you see that kind of rich theology, the rich psychology of that sort of thing without any education whatsoever. It's just one of those most beautiful things that came out of Americana and this horrific background, but it comes through the church into society to change it.
Yeah, I can't remember his name right now. He played Mr. Fox in the Batman movies. Famous African American actor, played God in the. I remember an interview in which he said he couldn't stand February as basically African American History Month because it sort of separates out the fact that there's absolutely no understanding American culture without the contributions of Black Americans. I mean, you just saw it in the Super Bowl, Usher. You see it in rap music. You see it, and not just the musical contributions of African Americans, but in just about all levels, the African American story is an American story, and it's one of the most Christian American stories by virtue of the terribly difficult stories of race. So these low countries, they were kind of the bottom land that those are the last places you settle. And so the Dutch sort of took what they had and made a lot out of it. They're a really amazing country. Very small, but they've always been sort of an in-between because you've got England, you've got France, you've got Germany, and tiny little Netherlands. So kind of like the Jews in that they're at the intersection, and it's not always a good place to be when empires want to do something.
That's true. So when I was in college, we went to Bruges, Belgium, to plant a church.
Oh, okay.
I took 3 years of German in high school, and I just thought, I'll walk in there. I spent all week, Paul, going door to door, inviting people to church in German, not realizing I was offending every single household that I was going to. And so, can you guess how many people showed up at church on Sunday? From my list, 0.
Another German invasion, this time from an American.
From a cocky American, that's right. That's right. He was coming in as a messianic figure to save them all. That's right.
Oh yeah. Well, it's Christian ministry can be a hilarious thing sometimes. It really can. You do some things, you just laugh sometimes.
Well, so CRC, I think there's various forms or offshoots of that. Can you kind of give us kind of the general bent of it, where it sits within maybe the Reformed background, and then also conservative, liberal angles and different arms of that?
So the Reformed Church, I always get this wrong. The Reformed Church in America is the oldest Protestant denomination in the New World. Brought over, that was the state church in the Netherlands. So the Netherlands fights this rebellion against King Philip to separate themselves from the Holy Roman Empire, and they become Reformed. The Anabaptists got in there, and then they basically became Reformed, and following sort of the teachings of John Calvin. And the state church was that church. Now, that state church, of course, came over to New Amsterdam, that little slice in New York and New Jersey. That was New Amsterdam that eventually got absorbed by the British and conquered by the British. That was the state church. In the 19th century, it's helpful to think about the history of Christianity over the last few hundred years as tensions with modernity and the Enlightenment. And in the 19th century, the state church in the Netherlands was seen as predominantly an urban church, and many of these rural communities in the Netherlands didn't like the way the church was going and wanted to separate themselves from it. So you had these church separatist movements, and there was a movement in the Netherlands called the Afscheiding, which was a separation, and later with Abraham Kuyper, another separation. In the 19th century then, there was the Dutch started you'd have famines and things go through in the Netherlands, and the poor rural Dutch then tended to leave the Netherlands in larger numbers and come to America. And so they had the Reformed Church in America, but many of those churches had been here for a very long time already. We're already Americanized. We're already having services in English and all of that. So these new waves of immigrants, they had certain particular beliefs about a variety of things of the day. They separated themselves, and that's where sort of an accumulation of them formed what today we call the Christian Reformed Church in North America. They kept the Dutch language services and many of the Dutch traditions of these separatist churches, these conservative separatist churches in the Netherlands, had them in America. And then when immigrants would come, they were happy to find a church and then a school that spoke their language. And so they tended to stay among their own.
Sure. Yeah.
Until the First World War. The First World War was an important turning point. People remember anti-Japanese sentiment in the Second World War because of Pearl Harbor. There was tremendous anti-German sentiment in the United States during the First World War. And of course, German is Deutsch, which sounds a lot like Dutch. And you had these groups of people that were worshiping in a language that Americans didn't understand, and they sure looked German. So at this point, the Christian Reformed Church starts saying, that there was actually a church in Iowa that was burned down because the neighborhood thought they were a German church. So they start putting flags all over their churches and
For example, videos like this, where there's a video game playing below, some kind of animation, and it's really easy to kind of get stuck into this pattern of like watching stuff like this over and over and over again and not put that attention towards something that's a little less dopamine inducing, like a book, like this is a pretty good book. It's a pretty thick one though, and it takes a while to get through. And to put your attention towards something that will take a while it takes discipline, and that discipline is not easy to cultivate. I mean, to be honest, the reason I have this book is because I wanted to read it because I listened to the audiobook because I couldn't pay attention to the actual text. So someday I will. I'm still working on this too. The whole idea of discipline is that we give up something now for something later. I'm giving up putting my attention towards the easy thing, not giving into my desires to kind of just hit the dopamine button in my brain over and over again, but to agree to just say, hey, I am going to do something that will make me feel way better in the future. To trust that I know, right? Sleep is another major thing. It's easy to keep pressing the dopamine button and not actually sleep. But when I sleep for a reasonable number of hours for a human being, I feel good. I'm good in the morning. And when I have the time to sit quietly in a room, when I get that opportunity, often I don't take it. But when I do, it's amazing to sit alone with my thoughts and to process things, to be able to feel emotions for the first time in a month. But it's easy to use this thing and to just do whatever you want with it. Just follow the paths that are already set out for you. So don't be controlled by that. Actually take ownership, take charge, grow some discipline, use your attention well, put it towards something you actually care about. I've kind of made this same point in several other videos. I'm trying to get better at addressing that main point. Like, this is my honest advice to you.
You need to articulate the good.
Yeah.
I will quote Fifth Element and say that time is not important. Only life is important. I keep remembering the scene from The Fifth Element where the guy is like, time is not important, only life is important. What?
Time not important, only life important.
Like love. Love is worth saving.
I don't know love.
Now encompasses everything. Does it not?
It's all there is.
It's all there is.
You choose survival, social, wisdom, or heart.
Miss, multipass.
I do believe that this consciousness is sort of like a meat popsicle, as Bruce Willis in The Fifth Element called it.
Sir, are you classified as human? Negative. I am a meat popsicle.
What I used to do all the time in Discord chats. I come in here when I'm working on the elliptical. Chad just got an elliptical. Chad, get in here. I'll show you what's up. Show you how it's done.
Fifth Element, and the gal that's playing in Fifth Element, I had the same. So I had this tendency to be able to be captured by the stories or the performances. And I think there's something similar to that. If I'm watching a movie or a film and I'm immersed in the story, that's a flow state too.
But life is time. Your life is made up of the time you have. That's all it is.
You see, Father, by creating a little destruction,
A cherry.
I'm in fact encouraging life. You're a monster, Zork. I know.
See, you've given yourself up. But this is the most powerful thing that can be done. Surrender.
Why don't you take this opportunity to answer that in the Hive Mind chat or in the comments if you're watching the replay? What do you want to exist even if you don't? And how much of a difference do you make to it?
Wind blows. Fire burns.
There are some things, very nice things worth saving.
Like love.
Yes, like love. Love is worth saving.
I don't know love.
Because I love you.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 1.
Unification between the two churches, the Eastern Catholic Church is going to play a major role in that.
At least hope that's where we are. You know, we're at the point where we're reunifying because it seems necessary, but it's also, it seems like it's one of those mythologically reoccurring themes.
Yes.
And you know, I think that the approach that you take as a minister, of course, and a pastor, is important because it's trying to do the same thing, I think, to a degree that maybe other people are trying to do in a more secular fashion, which is to bring people back to these foundational stories. And the reason why I think that the character arc's mission to me is important is because what I'm hoping, at least, and what it seemed to have been able to do in the past, is be like a gateway towards a deeper understanding of the religious stories.
What does the kingdom of God look like, or the parousia, the reconciliation of all things, when we as saints or the church or the bride of Christ mend the division and reunify the things? What does reunification look like? Because if being entails duality and division and night and day and differences, what then does reconciliate? And somehow this is connected to a thing I've been contemplating, and I don't even know what it means, but it's something. Being is good, creation is good, God is good, and we stop trying to conform everything to our image and to our judgments and the way that we think it should be. And then simultaneously, and I know this makes no sense, but simultaneously nothing changes and everything changes.
This is the new heaven and the new earth, okay? So you have this teleological new heaven and new earth, the destruction of all things. But it's fractal, right? When you reconcile things, multiplicities, particulars, when you bring them together in your own life, in your mind, let's say, suddenly you're living in a new heaven and a new earth, right? Nothing is the same anymore. This is what reconciliation does, right? Reconciliation creates new heavens and new earths. Every single day, it does that.
There's something you know that you would feel better doing with that time, just do that thing. I highly encourage you to. I've been trying to do the same myself. You know, I've been trying to sit down, write poetry. That's hard, especially when I can just be watching a video on, you know, the best indie games I could be playing, or the 5 best Skyrim mods, or a review of Dragon's Dogma 2. All these things that I could be putting my time towards, and it would feel good in the moment, but I would feel like crap afterwards. And I will, and I have. This is a video for me as much as it is for you all. If anyone else gets any good out of it, that's amazing. But I'm going to keep this on a playlist for myself. Hope you all have an amazing day, and peace out.